Oh, hi, you found us.
We're Steph and Jen. We're both sleep consultants, we're both mums, and we're here to help you and your little ones get some much needed sleep. So, just a wee disclaimer before we begin. Anything that we discuss on this podcast is not medical advice. The discussions we will have are intended to give some guidance to parents that want it. However, every child is different, and as a parent, you will be the one that knows what is best for your child. If our chats help you, then that's amazing. But if you don't feel it resonates with you or you're happy doing things your own way, then that's absolutely fine too. If things are working for you, don't feel you need to change anything.
Welcome back to Mama Needs Sleep. Tonight we are going to be discussing sleep disorders, all the different things that can go bump in the night. So Jen, do you want to start by talking about sleepwalking, confusional arousals?
Yeah, so sleepwalking is probably one of the more kind of commonly known so sleep disorders, or sometimes you'll hear them called parasomnias. And that just means, again, sleep difficulties, sleep disorders. So sleepwalking is what I say one of the most kind of well known, and that's basically when a child or an adult, but more common in children, they partly wake between deep sleep and light sleep, so during that transition, and they will often start walking around. They'll also sometimes be sort of mumbling or talking. It won't necessarily make a lot of sense. Sometimes so particularly children, sometimes they'll also do like little tasks. So they might start like tidying away their toys, or some might try and like change their clothes, or in unfortunate cases as well, it's quite common for a kid to go and like pee in the wardrobe or pee in a drawer. So it's actually a very normal kind of sleep disturbance to occur. It affects about a third of children at some point in their lives. Most common between sort of ages 4 and 8, and it is something that most people will grow out of in time. It can also be a lot more common if either parent has a history of sleepwalking or any of the other sort of parasomnias. So generally how they will present will be a kind of like glazed, sort of glassy-eyed look, and they will more often walk towards either a source of light or a parent. Most kids that sleepwalk will follow the same sort of route. They'll have a route they take, and they'll follow that same route anytime that they sleepwalk, and they might do the same thing. It can be sort of brought on by overtiredness. It can be brought on by bouts of illness. So particularly like if little ones maybe have a temperature or have a fever, that can trigger it. Also, if they're particularly anxious or they're going through any sort of big changes, so things like starting school or house moves, anything like that kind of big disruptions in their life, these kind of things can all trigger sleepwalking. So as a parent, it can obviously be a bit alarming when this happens, especially the first time it happens. So it will usually occur sort of late evening, so the earlier part of the child's sleep. So more often than not, the parents will actually be awake when it happens. Not always, but usually it would be in that kind of still earlier part of the night. So basically, don't try and wake them. Don't try and talk to them either, because they will have no memory of it in the morning. They won't know that they've done it. So if they are in the middle of doing something, just be kind of watching them, making sure they're safe, but just sort of let them do their thing, and then gently just kind of direct them back towards their bed. In the morning, try not to make too big a fuss of it as well, because they don't remember it, if a parent's then like, oh, well, you did this and then this happened, and it actually can then make them feel quite anxious about going to sleep, because it's obviously something they've got no control over, and it can be a bit frightening. So try not to make a fuss and just kind of play it down. It is very normal. If you are particularly like if you know that your child sleepwalks, or they're going through a phase where they're doing it a bit more regularly, you can be sort of trying to make your house as safe as possible. So whether that's like locking doors and locking windows and things, but even just like clearing any trip hazards in their bedroom, so that when they're getting up in the night,
they don't stand in the Lego.
They don't stand in Lego. So as I say, most children will grow out of it. It's not something you need to be concerned about. If it starts happening out of the blue, and you're kind of not sure why it's happening, you can be looking for these kind of common causes, you know. So obviously if they're unwell, you would probably already know that they're a bit out of sorts, and that's probably why what's triggered it. But if there's no kind of obvious cause, have a little think. Is there been sort of some disruption going on recently, or is it just that they've had a bit of a build up of overtiredness? And are there be things that you can correct to stop it happening? But equally, sometimes it is just something that kids will go through, and they will grow out of it. So don't be too alarmed by the things that go bump in the night, quite literally. So another of the kind of parasomnias, which is probably a slightly less well known, is confusional arousals. So these are quite often mistaken for sort of nightmares or night terrors, which you'll come on and talk a bit about in more detail. But I feel like confusional arousals are sort of slightly less well known. So these are basically when little one is like half awake, half asleep. And what's actually happening is that different parts of the brain are basically kind of they're not communicating with each other. And it is literally like half your brain's awake and half is asleep.
Yeah.
So these are most common in sort of under fives, don't usually happen before the age of 2. So kind of in that sort of 2 to 5 category. And again, occurs in the kind of first part of the night. So usually sort of between 2 and 4 hours of them falling asleep. One of the kind of big things to note is that different from like a nightmare or a night terror, they shouldn't be showing any signs of distress. Usually they'll like stay in their bed. They'll maybe be talking, sort of mumbling incoherently. Again, that very kind of glassy stare where you look at them and they just look right through you, don't see you at all. They usually will stay in their bed. So it's not like sleepwalking where they're getting up and moving around. It's not like nightmares where they're awake and they're actually sort of telling you something's happened. They're not generally scared. They're usually just sitting up in bed, mumbling nonsense and staring right through you. What I would say is don't try and interact too much. So actually, if you're trying to sort of calm them and it's okay, you're still asleep, and trying to settle them, that can actually cause them to become quite agitated. Yeah. So you're almost better just sort of sitting and watching. So making sure that they're safe, that they're not going to fall out of bed, that nothing's happening that you need to intervene. But if you can just kind of sit with them until it passes, and they will again just fall back into sleep and have absolutely no memory of it in the morning. Again, so these episodes they'll last from anything from like a couple of minutes to kind of upwards of half an hour, and that, again, it's quite normal. Probably if it was going on sort of past an hour, that would be more unusual, and you'd be thinking, okay, is there maybe something else going on here? Are they maybe ill? Do they have a fever? But if it is just lasting for kind of half an hour or less.
Yeah, Jessica used to get them and she used to just sit up and she'd go, Mom, and then by the time we got to her room, she was like fast asleep again.
Oh, really?
But like you could see her on the camera, eyes open, but like that kind of, obviously when it's on a baby camera, it's like the wee red eyes.
Oh, yeah, it's creepy.
And then she'd just be like, Mom, and then like lie back down again. Like I was just thinking that I just got to sleep. Like
you get such a fright as well when it happens.
But yeah, so yeah, they are.
They're about 17% of children they happen in, and again, things like tiredness, any big disruptions in life, these illness, these are all kind of common triggers. And again, it's something that they do generally grow out of. Usually, when you're going through a wee phase of them, they'll be happening like a couple of times a month. Like it's not something that will generally happen every night, but yeah, again, don't be too alarmed. It's quite normal. It just doesn't look that normal when it's happening.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk to you a wee bit about nightmares and night terrors, what they are, how to differentiate between them, and how to deal with them. So nightmares are basically scary dreams, which occur during REM sleep. They cause your child to wake up and they can be quite upset. 75% of children have had a nightmare. 42% of children between 2 and 4 will have had one. And children between the ages of 6 and 10, about 41% of children that age will have at least one nightmare in that time frame. The best way to manage a nightmare and to reduce the likeliness of them happening is to avoid scary or overstimulating things, especially before bedtime. Like don't be watching like a scary movie, or just like, even just like, like these TV shows that are for kids, but they're just a wee bit odd and a wee bit
In the night
strange.
garden.
In the night garden, or even like Scooby Doo or something like that, where there's monsters. Like, just avoid TV before bed. Reduce any stressors during the day. So like, if there's something that that like taking your child to the supermarket and not buying them the toy that they want at the checkout can make them quite stressed and quite frustrated. Avoid those sorts of things where we can, if you know that they're prone to having nightmares. And ensure they're getting enough sleep during the day and during the night. Like, overtiredness can really like stimulate and cause nightmares. When your child wakes up, if they've had a nightmare, going in and just reassuring them, just giving them a wee cuddle and telling them it's all right, it wasn't real, it was just a bad dream. I know it was scary, but mummy's here now, daddy's here now, come give me a wee cuddle, and get them calm and ready to go back to sleep again. It can take a few minutes, or even like up to 10 minutes, just to calm them down, depending on what the dream was about. Let them talk about it if they can, like if they're old enough to talk, to get the words out. For younger children, you might just get a word. But yeah, just kind of help calm them down. Sometimes using something like a nightlight, or like, the Himalayan salt lamps, like they're really good for just lightly having the room lit, but not like bright enough to actually stimulate awakeness. It can make them feel safe, just because if they were to wake like during the night, or if they were a wee bit worried about going to sleep in case they might have a bad dream, like they can kind of have a look around the room and make sure they know that they're safe. There's nothing scary in there. One thing that works really well for older children is to actually get them to draw out their nightmare and then scrunch it up and put it in the bin. And then they're throwing that nightmare away. And it's just like this symbol of like, it means nothing. Like, just throwing it away, putting it in the bin. Like, it was just a bad dream. Like, and it helps them have a wee bit of control over it as well. So let's move on to night terrors. Night terrors differ from nightmares. They seem similar, but actually a night terror is quite a lot more dramatic. They can be quite stressful for the parent or caregiver to witness, but they're usually not a cause for concern. They can be quite scary to see, and
I've
you
only
feel
seen
so
videos of them. I've never actually seen one in real life.
I've dealt with it in real life, and like, it wasn't my child, it was a friend's child that I was looking after, and I knew that he'd been having them, so I was prepared, and like the mum knew that like Steph will cope, Steph will be all right. Nick was like freaking out, going, Steph, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you helping? And I'm going, he just needs to get through it. And that's what you need to do. You need to just sit there, persevere, and just let them get through it. They usually happen kind of the same with like confusional arousals, like in the first kind of half of the night, like usually kind of 2 to 3 hours after bedtime. And they typically don't last any longer than 15 minutes. Usually kind of 2-3 minutes, but they can last up to kind of 15. And your best thing to do is just sit there, make sure they don't hurt themselves. Sometimes they can thrash about a wee bit. Generally what will happen is they might sit up in bed and just start screaming or crying or look awake, but they're actually like just completely out of it. Shouting, screaming, their heart rate might go up, their breathing might speed up as well, might get really, really sweaty, like just literally dripping with sweat, thrashing around, or kind of act upset or scared. But as I said, it usually doesn't only last for a few minutes, and the good thing is they will have no idea in the morning.
Parents, however, will be very stressed.
The parents, however, are triggered by it and will probably think, oh goodness, like, I don't want to go to sleep tonight in case it happens again. They are usually not very consistent. Like with some children, you might find that if there's been quite a lot of change recently and that's what's happening, or if it's a case of that, like, it only happens if they're staying in a new place which isn't their bedroom, or like you're away on holiday or something like that, or someone else is looking after them or putting them to bed, that could be what's kind of triggering it. And in these situations where right, okay, it might happen again, or it's happening every 2 or 3 nights, or it's happening like once a week, once a month, like, keep an eye on what time it's been that you're that is happening. So like say it's happening kind of between 9 and 9:30, then what you would want to do is wake them up half an hour, 15 minutes before it, and that just breaks the cycle. And then they can go back to sleep at a different stage of their sleep, and then get the rest of their night's sleep.
It altogether.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good, yeah.
So yeah, they can be quite hard to watch, but
I think it's the like everything when you witness that, and for any of these kind of parasomnias, I think your reaction as a parent is like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
And actually, the best thing you can do is
make sure they're safe.
Yeah, just sit and watch and be there in the morning. And actually, like that, for most of these things, other than the nightmares, the little ones aren't going to have any memory of it. So it is actually it is far more distressing for the parents than it is for.
And
for
again,
the child.
as you said, like with the sleepwalking, like if your child's had a night terror, don't bring it up to them in the morning. They will have no idea what you're talking about. It might make them feel a wee bit embarrassed. It might make them feel a wee bit anxious for going to bed that night if they know that this happened. Because in their brains, not only are they thinking this might happen to me again, but they're thinking, oh, I scared mummy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that again. And they're thinking about you as the parent. So, yeah, just keep that wee secret to yourself.
Yeah.
This episode has been sponsored by Mum and Baby Hub. Mum and Baby Hub was founded by the incredibly passionate Leighann Graham. Each class is packed full of education, hints and tips. Leighann's mission is to support and empower women and couples to plan and experience a confident birth and early parenting journey. She offers a selection of classes, workshops, group and one-to-one sessions that meet the needs of expectant mums and new parents from early childhood right through to toddlerhood. To find out more about the Mum and Baby Hub, head over to their Instagram account at mum_and_baby_hub.
Okay, so next up, we're going to have a wee chat about some sleep-related movement disorders.
Yep.
So these can quite often look quite frightening to parents if they don't know what's going on. But for the most part, they're quite normal. Young babies in particular can have little jerks that are called benign neonatal sleep myoclonus. And these are little like repetitive movements of like their arms or legs. They're perfectly normal, totally harmless. We spoke about it in a previous episode that when babies are asleep, what's supposed to happen is that their muscles get paralysed.
Yep.
But because their wee brains just aren't quite fully developed, those impulses don't get properly suppressed, and it makes them have these wee movements when they're sleeping. And like that, it can look a wee bit frightening, but it's totally normal. And usually by about sort of 6 to 9 months, they completely grow out of it and it stops happening. Another little movement jerk that you quite often see, and it can be from babies right through to adults as well. They actually affect roughly about 70% of people. They're called hypnic jerks. Probably everyone will have experienced this at some point. It's that, when you're kind of like on the verge of falling asleep and you have that sudden feeling of falling and you jerk yourself awake.
I get them quite a lot. Yeah.
So they happen to everybody, and it is just that sort of you're transitioning into a slightly kind of light to deep sleep, and then your body suddenly isn't quite ready to sleep, or something happens and you just jerk back awake and you have that kind of horrible like pit of your stomach feeling. And also that happens to little ones as well, but it can look a bit more dramatic with them. But again, totally normal. And it's not anything to worry about. One of the ones that I think parents certainly come to us and ask about more often is rhythmic movement disorders.
Yes.
Now, again, it's nothing to be concerned about, but it's just babies will try and settle themselves sometimes in these kind of rhythmic movements. And it can be things like slapping their legs down on their mattress. It can be head banging, like sometimes they'll be like knocking their head against their cot or their crib. Body rocking, so like almost like up on all fours, rocking back and forth. And any of these movements, again, they look a bit like a kind of a caged animal, and you think, oh my goodness.
Yeah, or sometimes you think, oh, like they're just not going to fall asleep, like they're just full of beans, or like they're just like they're at it, like. Yeah,
and then next thing you know, that's them. They fall over quite easily, and it's almost just quite soothing movements for them.
Yep.
So yeah, if you do see your little one doing these movements, no need to be concerned. It's quite possibly just their kind of way of settling themselves. The last one, which very much affects me as an adult, is restless leg syndrome. So you don't see it maybe as often in little ones, but it does affect a small percentage of kind of school age children.
Yeah, Jessica gets them sometimes.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing, and it's basically this kind of uncontrollable urge to move your legs. And it does tend to be worse when you're tired. So it's usually if you're just kind of trying to fall asleep, or if you've maybe been up too long and you're needing to go to bed, but you're maybe like sitting on the couch, and it's just this really horrible sensation that tends to be relieved by moving. So if you can get up and walk about, I find like standing on a cold floor is really helpful. But yeah, again, it's another one that it's harmless. It's just a bit unpleasant. And sometimes there can be like deficiencies and things that can aggravate it. But for a lot of people, it is just a kind of hormonal thing that will affect you at some points and then not so much at others. Or there can be certain, like for me, I think if I am like dehydrated, it's definitely worse.
Yeah.
So like things like I couldn't like have a glass of wine and go to the cinema. I would literally be like up and down like a yo-yo. But yeah, in little kids, you might find that, kind of school age children, you might find they're complaining of a kind of funny sensation in their legs, or
she said that she feels as if there's ants going up and down her legs when it happens.
Or people say sometimes, like things like crawling or like running water, or just that kind of any sort of odd sensation. Quite often that's what it can be. So no need to be concerned. These things are all fairly normal, and certainly, I think the kind of banging the legs and head banging, they seem to be the ones that cause the most concern. But yeah, it's nothing to be worried about.
No. So when I was pregnant with both girls, actually, I had really bad restless leg syndrome, and it was like I couldn't sleep because of how bad it was. And you all know how much I love my sleep, but I got magnesium spray and would spray that on my legs, and like to start with, it was like almost like an even itchier feeling, and then it but that's just because your body's absorbing it, and it's going, oh, thank you. And then I actually found that you can get like magnesium salts for your bath. And so when Jessica's saying that her legs are feeling a wee bit like that, then I put some of that in the bath for her, and she seems to say that helps. So it's maybe worth trying, but if it's something that's happening quite regularly, maybe worth giving it a go.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried. Sometimes the magnesium helps with me. Sometimes quinine. Sometimes iron. And sometimes absolutely nothing. Certainly pregnancy. Oh my goodness, yeah, I had it entire pregnancy both times, and it was awful, absolutely awful. But yes, I think for most people they don't get it quite so severe. Like I think, like my mum has it, my gran had it. It's very much something that, it's been passed on lovingly through the generations. Hopefully I've not passed it on to my kids. But yeah, no signs yet, so touch wood.
No, good. So I'll follow on and speak a wee bit about sleep apnea. This is something that like I've experienced firsthand, not with myself, but with Jessica. So I'll tell you a wee bit about like our what happened with us. But first I'll kind of explain what sleep apnea is, what sleep disordered breathing is, and then give you a wee bit of information about that. So sleep apnea or sleep disordered breathing, it's a partial or complete obstruction of the airways during sleep, which leads to arousals and sleep disruptions. In babies and children, most common causes of sleep apnea or sleep disordered breathing are upper airway obstructions, enlarged tonsils or adenoids, a narrowing of the airway, or obesity. It occurs in roughly kind of 1 to 3% of all children preschool age, and 10% of these children snoring during the night is a common side effect. Other nighttime symptoms, of course, are snoring, breath holding, restless sleep, like excessive sweating, and abnormal sleeping postures. Other sleep disorders can also be present too, such as like bedwetting in a child who's old enough for hormonally that not to be happening, or trouble settling to sleep, a lot of night wakenings, and arousal disorders. Daytime symptoms present as mouth breathing, nasal congestion, like morning headaches. They're a little harder to wake in the morning, or they're more tired during the day. sometimes they have mood swings or can be a wee bit hyperactive and like have a real struggle to focus. The kind of testing and diagnosis side of things is pretty simple. Like, you would make an appointment with your doctor would refer you on to ENT, then you would have a meeting with them, go through like your child's symptoms and like kind of the different things that you're noticing, and then they'll send you home with like a sleep study. And literally it's this little box with a little wire attached, with a little plaster attached with a probe on it, and you attach it to their toe during the night. And that just monitors their oxygen levels, if there is any pauses in breathing, anything like that. And there is a wee alarm on it that if it comes off in the middle of the night. So that's one thing to, if you've got a wriggly child like I do, that can, it came off a couple of times with Jessica. And then you return back to the hospital the following day, and then you get your results back in a few weeks. The management of sleep apnea will depend on what the root cause of it is. So some children, it is just that they need to have their tonsils removed, or their adenoids removed. Sometimes it's like putting a wee stent in if their airways are narrow. And it could be weight loss if they're obese. Or the other one is the use of a CPAP or a BPAP machine which helps keep their airways open overnight. So Jessica's kind of story of this is like obviously doing what I do. I noticed the signs and I kind of monitored it, and I kept a diary for a wee while just to kind of, I knew it wasn't anything to be severely worried about, just that something that kind of needed to be dealt with in time. And so I noticed it when she was about 2.5, and I took her to the doctors, and the doctor kind of had a look in her throat and her mouth, and they were like, okay, tonsils and adenoids do look quite big for her age, but hopefully she'll just grow out of them, like, or grow into them. So we'll kind of reassess it when she turns 5. So ding dong, 5 o'clock, fifth birthday appears, and I'm on the phone to doctor going, right, can we get this checked now? Because things like, she's not grown out of this.
What symptoms did she have? Was it like
so she has mouth breathing during the day. She would sleep kind of almost in child's pose, so like her head on the pillow and her bottom in the air, like, and her knees pulled down, and she would snore. She would be like, in the morning she would just be like groggy as anything. Just, I mean, she still can be like that. Just always like always on the go, but like very, very quick to just be like full on tears.
So it's almost like that overtiredness.
Yeah, almost like it's the overtiredness. It was like just everything all rolled up into one. Her sleep was so disturbed. Like, she would stay in her bed all night and she would go back to sleep because she could settle herself back to sleep. But occasionally she would call you through and she would kind of almost be like coughing because she's taken such a big deep breath in after a pause that like she kind of had woken herself up and was coughing with it. And during the day, like the mouth breathing, I was just like, where's your nose? But yeah, so we saw the doctor. She got our sleep study done, which was great that we could do that at home. As I said, the probe fell off, and then I worked out if I put a sock on her foot, it stayed on. So we did that, and that got us through the rest of the night. And when we took her back to the hospital to hand the box back in, they checked her throat again, and kind of had a feel of her neck, and they were like, right, okay, our adenoids and our tonsils need to come out, so we'll put you on the wait list. So that'll happen when she's around 7. That's the one thing with all of this. It can take a long time to kind of get there, but they'll do another assessment, when like a pre-op assessment, prior to actually getting a date.
Yeah.
And that'll just kind of confirm again, like, yeah, she definitely needs it, or by the time she's 7, no, she's actually grown into them properly now and she's fine and doesn't need it. So Jessica's just excited for the ice cream she'll get afterwards.
If you do suspect that your child has any of these symptoms, it's always worth getting them checked out by a doctor and potentially getting a referral to ENT if that's what's recommended. Okay, so shall we move on to our hack and fail of the week?
Yes. Okay, so do you want to go with a hack first, or will I go with my fail?
Okay, I'll go with my hack, and then we can end on the fail, because it's always good to have a little laugh to end the
yes.
podcast. So my hack this week is one is probably quite good if you are going on holiday, or even just for like packing nappy bags and things. It's probably more for if you've got a kind of younger child that still wears a vest.
Okay.
So this is one that maybe need to do a wee video for online, because it's probably easier to watch it visually than for me to try and describe it. But basically what you would do is lie the vest out flat.
Okay.
And then if you get together your whole outfit that you're wanting your little one to wear, and so you would put like, say, like vest down, then you would maybe put like t-shirt, leggings, a nappy, socks, and you basically roll it all up into like a little sausage, and then you pull, so where the vest buttons are, you pull one side right, like curve it round, and then button it at the other side, and you end up with like a little
vest tortilla.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got your full outfit is all in like one nice little package. And then
that keeps it quite compact as well.
Yeah, and then if you're reaching into, so say you're out and about and you have a punami disaster,
you've got
everything reach into the bag and you pull out that little burrito, and it's got your full outfit change all in one place.
Amazing. I love it.
So that is my hack this week, and I say we'll get a wee video of that so that we can show people how to do it.
So my mum fail actually happened tonight, and it like riddled me with mum guilt too. So I've been working quite a lot at night recently, and tonight I was getting ready to come out so that we could do this recording, and I couldn't find my shoes anywhere. I mean, I've had one of those days like that my brain's just not like connecting, it's not computing today. So I thought, I've put them somewhere and I can't think where. Searched everywhere I could possibly think that they could be, and then I thought, right, I'm just going to go and ask the girls. Like, Nick was tucking them into bed, like, and I just went upstairs and I'm like, girls, did you move mommy's shoes? And like it just went quiet, and I was like, girls, like, I really need to go. Where are they? Jessica got out of her bed and went underneath her bed and pulled my shoes out. She's like, I didn't want you to leave. Aww. And I was like, that's just like, I was like, I still need to go, but like, you're pulling my heartstrings here. Like,
so to go, but now I feel really bad about it.
So when I get home, I will be climbing into bed with her and giving her big kisses and cuddles. Thanks for listening. If you would like us to cover anything or you have any questions, please get in touch through our Instagram at mama.needs.sleep. Our inbox is always open.